Can do. Okay.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so this is working, but if I just do so, there is the enter, right? No, of course it doesn't work.
Usually everything is working.
Ah, okay.
Yes, okay. Now we can close everything. I don't know why the pointers disappear. Okay. When I try start. Okay. Okay. Hello everyone. Sorry for that.
That's the last thing.
So a reminder, after the seminar, we have the CfA live. So we will try to empty the room as soon as possible so they can rearrange the tables. And in the meantime, I would like to introduce Julia. She's our new member of the High Energy Committee seminar. So you'll be seeing a lot of her in the coming months. So we will start with our first speaker, which is Victoria Toptun. Victoria is a second-year PhD student at the European Southern Observatory at ESO in Garching, Germany, and her work focuses on X-ray properties of galaxy tubes. Today, she will talk about the gas properties in low-mass galaxy group halos with eROSITA. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you again for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure to be here today. And yes, today we'll talk about revealing the gas properties of low-mass galaxy group halos with eROSITA. We all know that galaxy groups and clusters are most common environments in our universe. And at the same time, there can be a really nice test of all the processes in our universe on really huge scales. At the same time, we can use, in particular interested in galaxy groups because we can test non-gravitational processes using these interesting targets. Because galaxy clusters have really massive masses, they're huge, and from theoretical predictions, we not expect for them to have significant impact of feedback into properties of halo, like temperature and density. At the same time, for galaxy groups with much lower mass range, much lower mass range and lower potential well, we can expect that AGN feedback and energy release during AGN feedback can exceed gravitational binding energy and therefore affect strongly on the gas properties for halo. And also, it's really useful to study halos with X-rays because they're emitting in X-rays, and we can from spectra and surface brightness we can learn their luminosities, temperature, surface brightness profiles, temperature profiles, entropy profiles, and all of this can give us more understanding about properties of these targets. And for example, we can have a look into scaling relations between luminosity and mass and temperature, luminosity and temperature. And scaling relations are in particularly interesting for our understanding of non-gravitational processes, because if we assume that all the processes in halos are lit only by gravity, then we expect from scaling relations to be on self-similar predictions. At the same time, in group mass range, we mostly see deviation from these self-similar predictions. Therefore, we can say that we see impact also from non-gravitational processes inside the halo. Also, it's interesting to check the gas fraction, because if we will see that we see less gas inside given radii than we should have, it may also say about some processes going inside halos that affect into amount of gas inside. And as I already said, it's interesting to check different profiles to have more insights on internal structure of the halo. But when we working with X-rays, it may also be a problem to have some observational biases. So our team did some interesting research regarding that, and we took one area on the sky and compare the amount of halos that we predicting from simulations that we detecting by optical selection, and also that we detecting by X-rays. And here you can see that if we're going to halo masses around 10 to 14, we can detect in X-ray most of the halos predicted by simulations. At the same time, if we are going below 10 to 14,
and especially into masses like 10 to 13.5 solar mass and 10 to 13, we losing most of the population when we're looking only in X-ray detected sources, because most of the population are X-ray faint, and it's hard to detect them. Therefore, only the brightest groups can be studied with X-ray, and it causes the ways that we have poor population of low mass center of the scaling relations. At the same time, it's causing significant biases. It may cause significant biases because first we're selecting brightest X-ray groups and then studying their X-ray properties. So we decided to try to look for some other approaches of sample selection and somehow add to our sample X-ray faint groups. And as I already showed that we can also select groups by optical selection based on their luminosity, stellar mass, and the velocity field of galaxies around. And then we're facing the problem of clarifying is optical selection is reliable or not. So for that, we decided to use our advantages of some kind of well-known universe in simulations. And postdoc in our team, Ilaria Marini, created a light cone with magneticum hydrodynamical simulations. This light cone is up to 0.2 in redshift, so it's in local universe, and expands in 30 degrees in size. And so for this simulated light cone, we created two types of mock observations. So first, we created an X-ray mock observations equivalent to EROS4 depth. Here you can see the example of our mock observation in X-ray. And also we produce optical mock galaxy catalog. And this optical mock galaxy catalog we can use for testing of galaxy group selection in optical ways. And so then we did some tests. So we took several popular group finders that were used for SDSS and gamma, and used procedures that people used for generating these optical catalogs on our mock optical catalog. And here, the main advantage is that we know the halo masses from simulations, and we know the amount of these halos from simulations, and we can compare the properties of these halos that we have in simulations directly with properties that we can reproduce by optical selection. And here I'm showing the results for one of the catalogs, Young 2007, based on SDSS, and for group finders used for that catalog. And we can say that we see a high completeness on all the mass range, and also not that big contamination. And also when we're comparing the masses that we have in input catalog from simulations with masses that we can reproduce by this friend of friend algorithm, we see that they are in really nice agreement with each other. So now we can say after this work, you can read more in papers that will soon be in archive. From that, we can say that optical group catalogs may be a nice choice for sample selection, and we can use it as a new approach of selecting these X-ray faint groups. So we did that, and we took Young 2007 group sample selected by SDSS catalog. And for X-ray follow-up for this, we used EROS1 publicly available data from eROSITA observatory. Our sample is also up to 0.2 in redshift, so it's local. And also to reduce potential AGN contamination and impact from fragmentation that may be in the catalog, we removed all the sources that contain some other sources inside their R500 and some point sources in EROS1 catalog inside R500. And also to be able to do this additional tests and be sure that our procedure is well, we took some mimic sample from simulations, from magneticum hydrodynamical simulations with the same selection criteria that I described here. And here you can see our distribution of our sample in redshift and in halo mass. But as I already said, when we're selecting groups by their optical selection, most of these groups will be X-ray faint. So from individual spectra and individual photons, it's quite hard to understand their properties. And for that, we divided all the sample into different mass bin and stuck everything inside these mass bins, with assumptions that inside one mass bin we have kind of common properties for all of the sources. And here you can see on the GIF that when we start adding new sources, we increasing signal to noise significantly. And also here I showing the comparison of two spectra. One is black one is individual spectrum of one of the targets, actually bright targets, and another one is stacked spectrum inside this bin. And you can see that we can reproduce the same spectral shape, but at the same time increase signals to noise significantly. And so first I will present work that I'm doing right now, and hopefully it will be soon also submitted. So I did spectral stacking to estimate the temperature of the halos inside mass bins. And here you can see a mass temperature relation. And by these light points, I'm showing data from the literature for different group samples. And also, I'm here showing self-similar predictions by green dashed line and scaling relation from Levisari 2015 by red line. And we in particular are interested in mass temperature relation because by location of our points and our groups of this mass temperature relation, we can understand, do we see any heating of gas due AGN feedback or not? And it will give us some insights on how strong affecting non-gravitational processes on halo in group. And so I did dividing the sample into mass bins. And for each mass bin, I stacked X-ray spectra to estimate temperature from modeling of spectra by multi-temperature Gadam model. And also, I already said that it's really nice to have some simulations to compare input and output and clarify that we are doing, we can reproduce original properties with our procedure. And here I'm showing the comparison between spectra for mass bin 13.0 to 13.2. And this red spectrum is spectrum originated directly from simulations, so before eROSITA response. And here black, blue, and green are different components, ICM and some small impact of AGN on XRB components in spectrum. And here by blue points, I'm showing the results of our stacking of mock X-ray observations. And you can see that mock observations and mock stacking and original spectra are really nicely consistent with each other. So we really can reproduce the spectrum by our stacking procedure. And also on the lower panel, I'm showing the comparison between temperatures that we can reproduce using stacking with mass weighted temperature originally from simulations. And we can see quite nice agreement within the error bars between these two values. So we can also reproduce a temperature of the halo by stacking procedure. And so as a result, due to thanks to the simulations, and we can compare our properties and can confirm that we reproducing properties of halos by stacking. And also I did different ways of background handling during modeling of the spectra. So I tried to stack background, model background, and two of these ways are giving consistent results with each other. So we can also say that this spectra and temperatures are real. And as a result, we can trace temperatures of halos up to 10 to 13 solar mass using these optical catalogs together with X-ray wide field survey. And here you can see that we consistent within the error bars with both Levisari relation and self-similar relation. So if we seeing some impact of feedback into average temperature inside R500, this impact probably is not that big. But at the same time, it's only average temperature. So first, it will be interesting to check temperature profiles for these hollow mass beams. And also, it will be interesting to expand the sample into bigger wide field surveys in optical and also in deeper data in eROSITA, EROS4, for example, to reduce the error bars and see what difference from self-similar relation we have. And but we don't do only stacking of spectra. We also did some stacking of surface brightness profiles. This work was done by Paolo Papesso. So we took EFETS field, equivalent of EROS8 depth, and gamma optical sample selection. And we stack different surface brightness profiles for subsample of groups who are well detected in X-ray in EFETS, and compare them with surface brightness profiles after stacking of sources that not detected with EFETS. And here you can see the comparison of these surface brightness profiles. Red is a profile of groups from the literature. Violet is profile of our stacked group for EFETS from the sample of detected in EFETS. And blue is profile of stacked groups that were not detected in EFETS individually. And you here can see that undetected groups have shallower surface brightness profiles usually, and maybe it will give some insights into their internal structure. Yeah. And also, it's, as I already said, interesting to check gas fraction inside R500. So we did that, and based on luminosity profiles, surface brightness profiles, we also estimate a fraction of gas inside R500 for our sample. Here by circular points, we're showing the literature data for X-ray detected sources. By dashed lines are relation between gas fraction and mass for from the literature also for X-ray detected sources. And the blue squares are showing our sample in EFETS after stacking. And here you can see that when we including X-ray faint optically selected groups to this gas fraction profile plots, we have some lower gas fractions than we usually see from X-ray detected groups. So therefore, probably due to reduced gas contact inside these halos, we have we see this thing, and probably it's due to some AGN feedback inside. And so here's my results. So it's nice to have stacking together with optically selected sources, and we really can reproduce temperatures that we see originally. And so it means that together with stacking, we can dig much deeper than we would do before with individual sources. And it's give us new opportunities to further research. And also, we checked that inside R500, average temperature on low mass beams is not changing significantly. We don't see significant heating. And also, we see lowering of gas fraction. So it will be interesting to move forward to check entropy profiles to understand if we really see impact from feedback mechanisms or it's something else like assembly history of groups. And that's all. Thank you for listening, and I will be happy to answer questions.
So, questions?
Oh, very interesting. I have one question about the spectra. So you are stacking a bunch of galaxies at different redshifts, right? So I assume that you do shift for the spectra, right?
Yes.
But you don't know the exact redshift or distance of these galaxy groups. So how much uncertainty does the unknown distance of the galaxy groups in your spectral phase?
No, we know the redshifts from the SDSS because all of the sample selection is based on SDSS catalog. I think not. So it should be, yeah, it should be a spectral, yes, spectroscopic reshifts, yes.
Really interesting work. I was wondering, possibly I missed this part earlier, but have you looked at the kind of average temperature kind of considerably further out in the halo? Because you're suggesting that it's the profile has been flat. Is the kind of scenario you're looking at consistent with heating at large distances, or like the ejection of gas?
Yeah, so like as soon as we see lowering of gas fraction, it's probably an ejection of gas instead of heating. And so it's kind of confirming by, it's kind of consistent with each other, as we don't see heating significantly, but we see injection, so lower gas fraction. But yeah, if we will have a look into entropy profiles, we may also see from the shape of the profiles how it will be. So yes.
So unfortunately, due to time constraint, we don't have more time for questions. Let's start with Victoria again. So we'll give it to the
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening. Yes, sure. So here's your presentation here. Is it working?
But it's not this.
Your time. Okay. Yep. Okay. So it is my pleasure to introduce our second speaker. So Peixin is a third-year graduate student at Harvard University, working with Professor Lisa Curie, and she received her bachelor's degree in physics at Peking University in 2020. Before moving to Harvard, Peixin spent 2 years at the Australian National University investigating EGN models and methodicity diagnostics with Lisa Curie. And she's very interested in galaxy evolution and AGN feedback. And today she will be talking about separating star formation, AGN, and shocks in active galaxies.
Thank you for the introductions. Also, thanks everyone who stayed here to listen to these optical observational talks. But you will find out in the later that is related to X-ray studies of galaxies. Oh, interesting. Okay. Works now?
It's fine.
Okay, so the questions of what I'm studying is about the mixed mechanism of the galaxies. So now I'm showing you the picture of two fancy galaxies, NGC 1365 and 5128. And in this galaxy, you can see on the left, there are H2 star-forming regions, highlighted by the blue point on the left figures. And then also AGN's region, which you can see, but it's residing in the galaxy center. And also shocks. Here are a pair of shocks front. But as you can see later, shocks can like locate in like many space in the galaxies. So this plot is showing you that both star formation AGN and shocks are present in some galaxies. And what's the interplay between these different mechanisms? So there are very famous AGN feedback questions, where here is showing you one example that researchers have studied this relation between specific star formation rate in the y-axis and the redshift in the x-axis, where specific star formation rate means the star formation rate divided by stellar mass. And then the green line showing you the star-forming galaxies from redshift 3 to local universe. And then the dots, both red dots and blue dots, are showing you the AGN galaxies, where they host AGNs. So this plot is showing you that whether the galaxy has an AGN inside or not, it seems that AGN are not actually affecting the specific star formation rate, and then like the star formation grows in the galaxies. So does this means that AGN feedback is overall negligible phenomenon? But in more resolved manner, when we're trying to resolve one single galaxies, there are also literature claims that both positive and negative feedback are present in one single galaxies. And this is showing you the example. And this plot is showing you example on NGC 5728, very nearby low redshift galaxies. And on the left is showing you the distribution of the AGN fractions, where the AGN fractions is where the plot is redder and yellower, it means higher AGN fractions and lower star formation fractions. Okay, and in the bluer region is the highest star formation fractions and lower AGN fractions. And on the right is showing you the map of star formation efficiencies, where the redder and yellower part is showing you they have higher star formation efficiency, meaning that more molecular gas the higher fraction of gas is converted into forming stars. So by comparing the left and right figures, you can see the region A, where marked as A, that they have very low AGN fractions and a very high star formation fraction. And in this specific area, they are having very high star formation efficiency. So for this region, this author was claiming it as positive feedback because this region is also the interaction region between the AGN activity region and the star formation activity regions. And then on the other side, they are finding a negative feedback part where very high AGN fraction was detected and very low star formation efficiency was detected in the same regions. So this is what they found in this 2D map. But one caution is that these results are based on this 2D resolution. But actually in these galaxies, there are very complex geometry happening. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the negative feedback region and positive feedback region are actually the interactions between the agents, ionized cone and the star formation ring. But just showing you as an example that also some researchers think that the negligible agent feedback effects in overall could be averaged out just because of both positive and negative feedback present in the same galaxies. And to study this in more detail, we need spatially resolved spectroscopy for a larger sample of galaxies. And this is enabled by the IFU spectroscopy. So in the previous year, also as in the SDSS survey, usually people use simple single aperture spectroscopy as shown in the top panel. So in this case, only the center region were marked at the solid colorful circle. The spectrum within this aperture was taken, and only one spectrum is taken. And then for one single galaxy, you only get one dot on these PPT diagrams on the top. But with IFU spectroscopy, you can have multiple spectrum for a single galaxy spreading from the galaxy center to the galaxy outer region. And then for one single galaxy itself, you can, the IFU spectrum can distribute a sequence or have some kind of distribution on the PPT diagram. And then based on the theoretical prediction of the H2, like star forming region and the AGN region, you can assign the location of star forming regions in these galaxies and also AGN region in these galaxies. This is how the IFU spectrum can help us with this study. Okay, so one in the previous 5 or 10 years that people have already studied to have already applying this technique to separate the AGN and star formation on the PPT diagram using IFU data. So this is showing you an example of how to do that. So in this plot, the colorful data dots are from the IFU data from NGC 1068. And you can see that they distribute a sequence on this plot. So this sequence extends from the H2 regions where it's marked at the red model grid to the AGN region where it's marked at the AGN model grid. So it means that the spaxel means each dot in this plot. The spaxel line in the red grid area is dominated by H2 photon stations, which is the star forming regions. And then the spaxel line in the AGN model grids are dominated by the AGN ionization. And then by assigning the distance of each spaxel toward the H2 dominates region and the AGN dominate region, you'll be able to assign the fractional contribution of AGN and star formation, and therefore you can separate them. But as I said before, shocks also present in these galaxies. So if shocks present, how can we do that? Can we do the same separation on this 2D diagram? Unfortunately not. This plot is showing you how the model grid, so these are theoretical model predictions, for the H2 regions, where the star forming region in blue grid, AGN region in red grid, and the shocks region in magenta grid for fast shocks, and slow shocks in the black grid. So as you can see in the same diagrams, that the 4 model grids are overlapped with each other. So there's no one clear separation between, like, among these 4 model grids that you can assign. One spaxel line in specific region might be only contributed by these spaxels, by these mechanisms. So it's very hard to separate AGN, star formation, and shocks on this 2D diagram. And if you are wondering what's the difference between fast shocks and slow shocks, one simple division is that shocks velocity below 200 kilometers per second will be slow shocks, and above 200 kilometers per second will be fast shocks. And fast shocks are different from the slow shock model because fast shocks also generate a pre-ionized precursor gas in the pre-shocks regions. So 2D diagram is not enough to separate AGN, star formation, and shocks. And how can we do that? This is how my works fits in. I was trying to solve the problem by developing a theoretical 3D diagram. So before I show the 3D diagram, it's very important to know what theoretical models I incorporate in this work. So this table is showing you the theoretical model I'm using, the 4 theoretical model from H2 model, AGN model, slow shocks, and fast shocks model. As I said, that the difference between fast shock and slow shocks model are that fast shocks has a precursor contribution, while the slow shock only have pure shocks contribution. And all these models are calculating with the same quantization code, mapping 5.2. And then they also have consistent dust setting, abundance fields, and pressure equilibrium. Okay, by using these model grids, I'm gonna at first overplot them on this PPT diagram. So as you can see, this projection of 3D diagram is onto H alpha in the x-axis and O3 H beta in the y-axis. And the red model grid are H2 model, black grids are AGN model, and the magenta grid are fast shocks model, and the green grids are slow shocks model. I'm also overplotting the IFU data of NGC 424 on this diagram. So as you can see on this same PPT diagram, it shows a star formation AGN mixing sequence again, but just from the 2D diagram. If we're adding the third axis, which is the velocity dispersions, representing the kinematic informations of each spaxel, let's see how they distribute. So as the diagram is rotating, you can see that they're actually, the spaxel is to have some vertical extensions toward the higher velocity dispersion regions. And now the diagram is fixed. So you can see clearly on this angle. And also, more specifically, is that this the spaxel extending toward the higher velocity dispersion is following the magenta grid, where the fast shocks model grids are located. So it actually means that for these specific galaxies, they have some spaxel fall in the H2 dominant regions, AGN dominant region, and the fast shocks dominant region. And you can also see 2 sequences linking the H2 regions and the fast shocks region, and another sequence linking the AGN dominant region and the fast shocks dominant region. So this means that these galaxies, the IFU spectrum of these galaxies covers 3 regions. One's H2 dominant region, AGN dominant region, and a fast shock dominant region. And there are also some regions are mixing between the 2 mechanisms. So in the following slides, I'm going to show you some typical distribution of galaxy IFU spectrum on the 3D diagrams. And you can see if you have an IFU spectrum of one galaxies, and they look like on the right on these 3D diagrams, basically flat, no much vertical extension, then this galaxy is a pure star formation agent contribution. You can exclude the presence of the of shocks in this case. And this is also showing you example of star formation and slow shocks mixing, where you might thinking there are star formation agents on the left, but actually the higher O3H beta point are following the slow shocks model, as you can see in the right plot. And this example is an agent and fast shocks mixing, where you might think it's pure agent on a BPT diagram, but then as you rotate, put it on the 3D diagram, you can see they have a significant extension to the fast shocks region. And this is showing you an example of star formation agent and fast shock mixing, as we seen for the NGC424, that in this case, you can see there are a sample of spaxel in the H2 region, in the AGN region, and also there's a very like apparent sequence extending toward the fast shocks regions and following the fast shocks model grid. Okay, and with this diagram, what can we do with this mechanism separations? So here is showing you one example of doing the same agent and star formation, and now it includes shocks. So there are 3 mechanism separation for this same galaxy, NGC 5728, where I showed that previous literature said there's a positive feedback and negative feedback in these galaxies. So the top panel is showing you the light ratio plot on the left, velocity plot of O3 emission, and the velocity dispersion plot on the right. The bottom panel is showing you left the theoretical 3D diagram with this galaxies data. And on the right is showing you how the separated mechanism distribute on this 2D diagram, 2D map. So one thing you can see on the left, the Frax H2 map here. That the brightest part, yellow, the most yellowest part of forming such a ring structure in this galaxy center. It means that there is a star formation rings in this galaxy center. And in the middle plot, you can also see there is a AGN, the AGN dominated spaxel are forming a bicone kind of structure where they extend from the nuclear to the southeast direction and the northwest directions. On the right, more specifically, you can see there is a fast shock contribution based on the very center regions that are also having a perpendicular direction toward agent bicone area. Okay. And the previous slide is showing you with Muse IFU data. And if you have known Muse, that Muse is almost the best spatial resolution IFU data for now. So not all the time we can get Muse data, but sometimes if you have lower spatial resolution data, which is this example is 1 arcsecond per pixel, but if your IFU spectrum have high enough spectrum resolution, like the R is over 3000 across the blue band and the red band, that you can also do this kind of separations of both star formation agent and shocks. This plot is showing you an example of doing the same analyze on the same galaxies NGC 5728 using a coarser IFU data from the S7 YFAS spectroscopy, which is based in Australia with 2.3 meter telescope. So in the top panel, the panel is showing you the same information, but you can see that the IFU spectrum of these galaxies covering the same regions are also showing a star formation, AGN, and fast shocks mixing on the left on the 3D diagram. On the right in this plot, you can also see the similar structure where H2 dominates spaxel are forming an arc-like structure, which is an incomplete star formation ring. And then in the middle, you're seeing the AGN dominates spaxel are following a bicone structure from the nuclear extending toward the 2 ends. And then on the right, you see the shocks dominate spaxel are also in the center, but not very well resolved to be like perpendicular structure toward the AGN bicone. But you can see roughly the distribution are consistent. So this is showing you the S7 with a coarser spatial resolution can do the similar work. And at last, I'm showing you two more examples of performing this separation work on two more galaxies. This one is showing you NGC 424, and the top panel is showing you S7 data, which has a coarser spectral size of 1 arcsecond per pixel. And then the bottom is the Muse data, where they have higher spatial resolutions. And then the separation result on the 2D map, as you can see, they have similarity toward the 5728, which is they also shows a star formation ring in the like surrounding the galaxy center, and then they also found shocks in the very nucleus regions, and also at the base of the Aegean, I would say ionization cone region, although the cone is not that apparent in this case. Another example is NGC 1068 that you can see both data in either a coarser level or a more resolved level. You can see there are also star forming rings kind of structure in the surrounding the galaxy center. And also the Aegeans are, I won't call it cone structure now, but you can see the Aegeans dominant spectral are surrounding the nuclear regions and have some extension toward the northeast region, sorry. And then the fast shocks dominates region are lying in the center in the nucleus and have some resolved structure. Okay, so these are the presentation of my work that I'm gonna submit soon. If you're interested in applying this technique to combine with your X-ray observations to learn more about agent feedback stuff, I'm happy to talk with you. And thank you all, and stay tuned for my upcoming paper.
So, hopefully, yeah, any questions? Hi, very interesting. That's very nice. So, can you go back to the diagram that you specify exactly? So, am I correct? Am I getting this correct that when you go from 2D to 3D, you can specify theoretically where each of them actually aligns, and then you just filter, you just mask out in this actually in the bottom, row, like different contribution based on their appearance in the 3 dimension?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So I think my question is, I mean, that's really great, but do you know that we can also have type 1 and type 2 AGN and their velocity is different?
Yeah.
So I haven't seen anything, and sorry for my ignorance. Do you actually recognize the difference between type 1 and type 2 AGN?
Yeah, usually type 1 has broad lines in the edge, like in the hydrogen lines. And in the fittings, we only use narrow lines in doing all this work.
So you just consider only type 2?
Or in type 1, you just subtract the broad lines and then do the only using narrow lines in these end lines.
Okay, I see. But do you have any speculations how they make it actually, like develop in the 3D when you potentially include the broad line just as that?
So one thing I need to specify is that the velocity dispersion I use in this diagram is for the O3 emission lines. And usually when O3 emission line get bored, is mainly people usually said it's outflowed. But in this case, I'm actually thinking part of them could also be shocks. And then like board line, like type 1 AGNs usually don't have, like, they won't specifically contribute to the board lines in the O3 emission, but the hydrogen lines.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we have time for one quick question.
Thank you. In your 3D diagrams, can you find a sort of like a fundamental plane? Like if you do principal component analysis, that you could find a preferential plane that will give you the most information?
I was hoping to find one like that, but for now, I don't explore enough data to like conclude a fundamental plan for like a large sample of galaxies for now. Yeah.
But within a single galaxy, maybe? You have.
They still have very distributions. I mean, for different galaxies, as I can show in a typical distribution sample. that if the galaxies have different contribution from different excitation source, you would expect different distribution. So for now, I don't have a very clear fundamental plans. Yeah, but it's a good idea. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Let's thank both of the speakers again. We need to start wrapping up because of the CfA, but thank you so much. See you next week.